Back in the book segment, telling another liberal cause being readied for rollout. With victories in the gay marriage arena and legalized pot, the left is turning its attention to changing the criminal justice system. Sunday's lead editorial in the New York Times demands that mass incarceration be ended now. The opinion piece says the USA is putting too many people in prison, but not once did this editorial mention the victims of crime. Not once. Times believes that people who sell hard drugs are non-violent criminals. Some of them should be given rehab instead of prison time. Times also believes the justice system is biased against people of color. And finally, the Times says that spending $80 billion a year in corrections expenses is a scandal. But what the uber-liberal newspaper does not tell its readers is that over the past 20 years, violent crime in America has dropped a whopping 49%. That has saved the country far more than $80 billion a year, and the human suffering caused by crime has been vastly diminished as well. If you take very bad people off the streets, the public is well served. And folks who sell heroin, meth, and cocaine are very bad people. Ask any family that has lost a child to these drugs. Ask them what they think about the pushers. With us now to respond, Monica Crowley and Kirsten Powers, who joins us from Washington. What say you, Kirsten?
Well, first of all, it's not just liberals who are concerned about this. There are conservatives who are concerned about it. Newt Gingrich, in particular, is somebody who's spoken about the problems with mass incarceration in the country. So I don't think we have to say this is just a liberal issue.
But would you see that it's being driven by the George Soroses?
No.
And you wouldn't see that.
George Soros
because you could cherry pick
Times.
one or two conservatives. You wouldn't see it.
It's not. George Soros and the New York Times have nothing to do with each other. I mean, the point is,
really?
We do have a problem in this country with mass incarceration. And
what's the problem now you see? How do you define the problem?
For you to quote the fact that the violent crime rate has dropped as somehow evidence of we don't have a problem doesn't make any sense to me. Because, first of all, they weren't just talking about violent crime. They're talking in particular, I think, about people who have been, thrown in jail for 15 to 25 years for selling 2 ounces of marijuana.
Okay, that never happens.
That is a problem.
And
it happens under the 3 strikes law.
It does happen.
It happens under the Rockefeller.
I'll put you back on tomorrow.
Rockefeller drug laws. Are you kidding me? You don't think under the Rockefeller drug laws,
if you
people
can
have
cite
been
somebody
put in
who's
jail
serving
for that
15
long?
or 20 for selling 2 ounces of pot, I'll put you back on tomorrow. You can't.
Under the Rockefeller drug laws, that's the law.
Okay,
Bill,
but that never happens.
That
the plea bargain down
it
never happens.
You don't think there's a problem in New York with drug laws? Seriously,
I
you don't think in the last 10
No.
years, last 20 years, there's ever been a problem
It's almost
with drug laws?
impossible to become incarcerated here.
Astonishing
They plea everything down. You've got to be 4 or 5 times caught to even get into court. All right, Monica, what do you say?
Well, the objective is to reduce crime, right? Cut back the recidivism rate, which is a huge problem in this country. And the other objective is to save taxpayer money. So what conservatives, and Kirsten is right, there are some groups of conservatives out there trying to talk about smart reform. What the New York Times was talking about, at least part in their editorial, partly, was reducing these long sentences, right? I agree with you. I think aggressive policing and aggressive sentencing is what has led to this dramatic plummeting of the violent crime rate. What I do agree with in terms of reform is what conservative states like Texas and Mississippi have done in terms of education and training of nonviolent offenders, and also trying to get to them in prison in terms of better treatment for addiction, because so much of this, as you know, Bill, because you've been covering this, has to do with the drug culture.
Absolutely, but you have to want to get off the drugs, and many people don't. All right, so we have a difference of opinion between Crowley and Powers on what has led to this dramatic violent crime drop. And of course, I come down on Monica's side because I say there are only selected very bad people who hurt other people, maybe 10% of the population. You isolate them, you take them off the streets, and then the crime rate comes down. But you don't buy that.
Well, I just don't think that you can really back that up, Bill, because if you look
George
at
Kelly and all the criminologists.
Can I finish what I'm saying?
You say I can't back it up, and then I try to back it up, and you don't want to hear it.
I have to say.
Hey, no, you said I couldn't back it up. I can back it up, but you don't want to hear it.
I would like to finish, and then you can back it up. How about that?
All right.
Okay.
Go.
What I want to say is, when they looked at California, when they compared different counties, some had the very, very tough sentencing, some didn't have the very tough sentencing and high incarceration, and there was no difference in the level of violent crime, because it's a national trend. And for you to try to pretend that it's just because you're putting people, all these people in jail, is not correct.
Right. I'm not trying to pretend anything.
If you can get the very violent people and only get them, that's good. Okay. But that's not what's happening.
Now I'm going to take the last word. If you look at George Kelly, and if you look at all the other criminologists across the country who subscribe to the broken windows theory, and you ought to read it, okay?
I know about
the more people you take off the street, the less crime there is. And that is irrefutable. Word of the day. Ladies, thanks very much.